Hello, welcome and an excellent evening, and tonight we again have a Commodore 1541 floppy drive. One of the, this is again one of the stranger kinds of things because it has the white bezeled Mitsumi drive in here with obviously a dead read-write head that you can see here. Because if you didn't know, the 1541s, the big ones with the transformer in here, and this is really heavy, and which have this lever style thing here instead of the Alps snap down mechanism, they have a tendency to die. The coil, at least one of the two coils inside of the read-write head, goes open for whatever reasons. The circumstances about that are not fully understood. There are now 3D CT scans from one of my dead heads, and I will put something up here or so that you can see that. And there's a discussion on the German Forum64 where they talk about this stuff. And basically this thing here is now dead and mostly useless. All the electronics are still working. This thing, if you didn't know, is a whole computer. Almost as powerful as the C64 VIC-20 because it has the same CPU, 6502, two VIA chips, a little bit of RAM, a little bit of ROM. The RAM is a little bit limited because it's, I think, only 2 kilobytes or so. So yeah, this is all working, the drive will move, but it can't read or write anything. So that's pretty sad because those drive heads are not being made anymore. A couple of months ago, I think last year, someone found a box of new old stock drive heads for these. I bought 2 of those, one for another forum member, and I swapped out their dead drive head for the working new one. And then I took this drive here and put in the second one. And it turned out that the drive head was dead, which is pretty sad. But new old stock doesn't mean that it's working, and if there's a systemic issue in the production of these things, then even the new ones will die, because usually these drive heads don't die while in usage, but even when they're in storage, especially for a couple of years or whatever, people just put them away, then take them out, turn them on, and they're dead. Which is very sad. So this is more or less an now very inexpensive paperweight. There are things that you can still do with this. You can take parts off of here for, I don't know, other broken floppy drives. There is even a replacement for the whole drive mechanism, which interfaces with the board here and which reads data from an SD card. So it simulates the analog part via SD card, which is very impressive. But I personally do love floppy disks, and I think I said that in previous videos a couple of times. So for me it's similar to playing vinyl records, which I also like very much. Yes, of course, I do use modern storage media and I do stream music, but if I really want to relax, I take out a compact cassette or a vinyl record, put it on, sit down on the sofa, and just listen to the music, and that's very, very nice. And the same thing goes for C64 demos or C64 games. I pop in a floppy disk, twist the lever, type load *8,1 and just enjoy myself. So it's very sad that this thing shouldn't be working anymore. However, putting this aside, in this little tiny package, there is a mystery circuit, let's say, and a couple of resistors that we can plug in between the read-write head and the place where it goes on the motherboard, basically, of the floppy drive. And it supposedly brings back this drive head back to life. It's not as it was before because of the 2 coils. One is probably still working, so we are misusing one of the coils for the reading and writing. but it's better than nothing as long as nobody is able to produce these read-write heads. So I will download and print out the instructions to this, and then this is a prototype board made on some perf board, completely manually assembled. But eventually this project, if it indeed really works as expected, will be made available at a very reasonable price, so that nobody can make a lot of money out of it, from what I heard, by the original author. And there might be also other people who are clever enough to build something similar. That's not me. But I am very happy to be able to get at least this drive maybe working. It supposedly also works on the 1571 drives, perhaps, which are even rarer, and for those it would be much more interesting even to get them back to working order. And they won't work on my other dead drive, which is of the modern 1541C kind, with the very short board with the hybrid IC. Because what this thing does somehow magically is to adjust the read and write currents for the coils. And you can't do that on the variant with the hybrid IC. So not all 1541s with the Newtronics or Mitsumi drive head are saved, but at least a lot of, like thousands, can probably be repaired using this. But if that's actually the case for my drive, I don't know. Let's find it out. Let's go over to the bench and check out the install instructions and put this thing in. So here we are with the 1541. This is an assembly number 250442, which is relatively common, I think. Most of the ICs here are from 1984. The CPU is 1983. So that does point towards this being produced in late 1984. At least these are late 84 or maybe early 1985. At which time in 1985, I think the 1541C would already come out. This one here had either a dead ROM chip or I borrowed it, so I put in an EEPROM on an adapter for this to work. Let us quickly verify that this thing has a dead head. There is a connector here which is going to the read-write head, and this connector has 5 pins, but one is missing for keying purposes, which is also missing here. So you know what to expect. There's a blue wire on the outside, a red wire on position 5, and then there's the yellow wire, which is, I think, for the erase current or something, and the black common. Between yellow and black and blue and black, you should see, and blue and yellow, you should see something between 11 to 30 ohms, I think. So let's check this. Yeah, this is not working quite well if I don't put it down. I hope you can see that. Yeah, that's 25 between yellow and blue. Between blue and black we will get 11.9. And yellow and black is 13.7. That's totally fine, but now going to the red wire, let's say red to black, you get 15 kilo ohms. That's 15 kilo ohms because there is a little resistor over down right below the read-write head, which means that coil is open. There might be a little wire that is being ripped, or the coil itself is open. Who knows? It's not easily repairable. There have been single persons, people who managed to repair something like that. But again, that's not me. Here is the instructions for this little board, which looks like this. And there's also a Bodge resistor that we will need. And the instructions say, particularly, sorry for the bumping, particularly for the 250442 that we are using, that we need to adjust one resistor, namely R29, which is right below this nice big orange capacitor. And it says R29 should be a 137 ohm resistor. Let us quickly measure that in circuit because this will work just fine. 137.5. That's perfect. And we should take a 27 ohm resistor, which is this one here. 27.2, perfect. And solder that across this. This is only needed if you also want to write with this drive, which you usually want. If you only want to have read capability back, you can basically plug in this thing, and I have to check because it doesn't say which direction it should face. I just threw it away, which is highly annoying. But basically you can plug this in. Again, I will show you which way it actually is. Maybe with some jumper wires, which might make more sense, and then mount it somewhere safely with some isolating tape or Captain tape or something. And then you should already be able to read discs. Writing discs you shouldn't do because the write current will be off and there might be data corruption or something like that. Probably doesn't hurt the mechanics or the electrics here, but I don't know. I'm not an electrical engineer and I haven't designed this. So yeah, let me quickly check which way around this board goes on here. And for the time being, we can just plug it in like so. If we want to close it back again, I will find a proper spot to mount this, probably with some hot glue or something, and some jumper wires, and a lot of tape, I guess. And of course, R29 will go in over here, something like this, cut to size, obviously. So it was actually relatively easy to figure out. The pin on the left here has no connection whatsoever. So this has to map to the broken wire, which incidentally is the red wire on my device. So I will plug this in so that the red wire is on the left, and then we also plug this whole thing in because the red wire always belongs to the left. And that we have it sticking up like that. Now the only thing needed is the Bodge resistor, and I will wire that into place real quick. A very quick close-up. This is the piggybacked resistor, the 137 ohms on the bottom and the 27 ohms on the top. This gives us roughly a 23, well, I measured 22 point something ohms resistance, which incidentally is roughly what you should be measuring, I think, on an intact head for this connection from black to red, I think. So I guess this is probably what's happening there to adjust the write current basically for the red coil or wire, I would say. And other than that, this is the whole assembly sticking up here, and basically it's bypassing the red wire completely because it's broken and replacing it with the one good coil. I think we're ready to test this now. The drive has been set up. It is out of its case because I have to do a little bit of alignment. I will come to that in a minute. Here is the replacement thingy and everything else is hooked up. Power is in here, so be careful when you're doing this because there's the metal chassis, and inside the metal chassis is the mains transformer. As long as you don't poke your fingers inside, it should be safe because this metal chassis should be grounded. There's a disk inside, a known good disk formatted on one of my other drives, and now we'll see what the 1541 alignment check and diagnostics tell us. So this is the 1541 diag test cartridge, and it has quite a few things, and on a dead 1541 it will do not much, especially for example if I go to the speed check, it will not work. However, now with this modification, we see the drive speed being a little bit off. We can try to tweak this. There is a pot here that should let us, oh, this is way too slow. That should let us adjust this to be as perfect as we can perhaps get it to be. So that should be nice. We can quit out of there. So that's calibrated. We can also try to read the directory of this disk, which didn't work before, and here you can see my face. And it seems to work. That is already a great improvement, obviously. What else can we do? We can look at the BAM, which is basically the directory, and we can see that this disk is not completely filled with stuff, but there's quite a bit, let's say. And yeah, the most important thing, and that's where I still have to do a little bit of tweaking, is the alignment check, which tries to see if the head that's in the drive is actually properly aligned. And I replaced the head of this drive, so it was completely out of alignment. I tried to align it as much as I could, but it's still off, as you can see in this test here. The first track can't be read, the second track can't be read. On the third track, we're actually reading perfectly, but we are 2 tracks off. This is the track that we want to read, which is 3. This is the track that we actually read, which is 1. Of those, we read 100% basically, and the half tracks we read also too much. So it's off by 2.5 tracks or something. You can adjust this by twisting the stepper motor back and forth so that the head assembly gets pushed forward and backward a little bit. I haven't gotten it to really properly align perfectly. However, funny enough, this is good enough to run a couple of demos, but not good enough yet. But what you can already see is that for sure this thing works much better than before, because before it was completely dead, couldn't do anything. And we can restore this broken behavior basically by taking out the little bodge that we put in there, and then we would have the dead drive again, but I'm not going to do this, obviously. So that is definitely something to celebrate. One thing that we could also try is to format a disk, because writing would also be interesting, or just plain saving something to the disk. Maybe we should try that. So, voice over Ruuudi here, and as you can see, I have recalibrated the drive, because in the state that we had it with the 2 misaligned tracks, it wouldn't do anything useful. So I went back and actually calibrated the drive better using the 2 methods that they are available on such a drive, where I changed the head. I will probably make another video about that, because it would take too long to explain. But as you can see here, the third column shows 100s all the way. And yeah, the half tracks are not perfect, but good enough so that it will work just as fine as all my other drives. That being said, we can go back to original me, showing you how the drive actually functions after this slight adjustment. So we are back in 1541 diag test, and fingers crossed that we can do the performance test, which will format the disk and try reading and writing. And if that works, it should be, well, good enough, hopefully, for usage. There you have it. It does seem to work. Everything worked fine. No, it worked fine. We can do one more alignment test, because I tweaked that a little bit before it wouldn't correctly format. And yeah, now the on-track percentage is roughly at 100. The half tracks are not optimal. They should be 0,
or close to 0. But I have quite a lot of drives where this is something other than 0 and they work just fine. The important thing is that the right track number has been read and that there is a high percentage here, nominally 100, but with those old drives, you never know, that give you correct answers. This obviously gives us 100 because we formatted it on this drive, but we can also use a disk from another drive and it will work basically just fine. So yeah, let's run a couple of demos, and I think this is a resuscitated or whatever zombie drive. It had a bad head that couldn't do reading or writing, and now it can do both, which is amazing. Even if it only lasts a couple of years or something, it's better than nothing at all, I would say. And here we are with Delirious from Genesis Project 2018. I just picked a demo at random, and let's see if this loads. Demos are usually more taxing because they use IRQ or fast loaders that have higher requirements for the drive. So yeah, let's enjoy this.
So, this is the final contraption, out of its case obviously. Here's the little tiny Bodge thingy. I will put a link to the original thread where this was announced on the German Forum64 in the video description, so you can check it out. There will probably be an order of properly designed, hopefully, I think, at least non-quite that prototypey things in the future. I can't tell when because I'm not doing that. So follow that thread for more information. There's also different results for different people depending on what kind of defect your read-write head has. But if it's one of the usual blue wire or red wire is broken, then there's a very high chance that this will work. There's also the possibility that you need to adjust the write current using this resistor or other things in a little bit more detail, but the original author is pretty helpful on that front and is probably also interested in doing something on that. And of course, you can't use the shortboard with the hybrid IC. That's another issue. Also, it's not clear whether this fix would work on an Alps drive, as they usually tend to not have this exact issue. So if you have one of these, it would also be interesting to see and experiment with that. But other than that, I must say, this was a totally dead drive beforehand. You couldn't do anything with it. And now it's back to fully working, I would say. As good as something from 1985 can work, like almost 40 years on. So to me, this is an actual win. I'm gonna clean this board. We'll try to rewire this to put this somewhere more safe. And also I've got a cracked case on this particular drive, so that might need replacing or fixing. And it's a bit yellowed, but I don't care too much about that. There could be some retro brighting here, but I think I will leave it at that. It's pretty nice. I will just clean it up. And then there's another revived 1541. I will call this the zombie drive because it came back from the dead. with a very weird fix and a half-broken read-write head. Yeah, but I love it, and it's such a heavy clunker. If you've never seen that, I will turn it around. You can see the big, huge transformer here. And in one of the previous videos, I also showed that you can replace these linear regulators with modern switching ones, which have low noise, or you can go the route that you totally bypass everything here and just use 12 volt DC as input, and probably also 5 volts, but you can use different regulators here to completely bypass the transformer. However, I like this setup, and I will probably leave this drive as is. It produces quite a lot of heat here, but yeah, I think I'm gonna leave it like that. But for today, that's it, and it's getting heavy. So if you like this video, share, like, and subscribe. Leave a comment about your issues with the old Commodore floppy drives. And what do you think? Do you think we should somehow get someone to produce new floppy disks just for the heck of it, for the community? I mean, even the oldest things nowadays in government or whatever have switched away from floppy disks, I think, and nobody uses those anymore. But I think they're a very interesting and very cool medium just for educational purposes and for hobbyists, and just to enjoy a very nice day of retro computing and retro gaming. So yeah, leave your comments down below. And other than that, take care and see you in the next video.